You change, and they see the change in you, and it motivates them to change. And then they start doing their work. They're so moved by what's happening with you, and your responses to them are so different than they were before. They begin to wonder, like, what are you doing? What's the work that you're engaging in? And they begin to be attracted to that new energy that you're putting out. They're attracted to the new version of you, and they realize that they want to wake up, they want to heal, they want to change, and you get to do the work together. You get to do transformational work together. That's a beautiful scenario. Doesn't always happen, but it's a beautiful scenario when it does happen. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Permission to Love podcast. I'm Jerry Henderson, really grateful that you're here. You know, I do this work of helping people heal their relationship with themselves by understanding how they're worthy of their own love, because I went through an 18-month period where my life imploded. Heart attack, open heart surgery, rehab, divorce, rehab again. And through all of that, I figured out that the thing that was causing me to stay trapped in a cycle of self-abuse, self-sabotage, shame, addictions was because my relationship with myself was broken. And so that's why I do this work. Now today, I'm going to address a question that has come up from many of the people who listen to this podcast or who've reached out to me on Instagram. And it's this question. It's a very specific question. Can I heal while I'm in a relationship with somebody who's unhealthy, with somebody who's not doing their work? And my answer is this: yes. That's the short answer, because you can do anything. You can do anything that you want to do. And I've seen a lot of relationships where a person begins to heal and they're able to stay in the relationship. But I will say this, that the relationship's not going to be the same. It's going to be a different relationship as you progress, as you heal, because you're changing. And as you change, the relationship's going to change. It's just automatically going to happen. Now, before I go any further, I do want to absolutely make clear and emphasize that if you're in an abusive relationship, mentally, emotionally, physically, you need to get out of that relationship and find some safety. You need to separate yourself from that. You know, all of the stories that you're trying to tell yourself as to why it's okay to stay in an abusive relationship, I just want to confirm to you that it's not okay. You're worth more than that. So go find a safe place somehow, some way. There's many resources in local communities that will help people who are in an abusive relationship. So I'm not talking about staying in an abusive relationship and trying to heal while you're in that type of relationship. I'm talking about an unhealthy relationship where maybe another person isn't growing, they're not doing their work, there's arguments, there's all kinds of things going on, and it just feels unhealthy. And can you heal in that type of relationship? Once again, I would say, yes, the possibility of you healing in that type of relationship is very real and very possible. But I want to talk about some things that are probably going to happen as a result of you healing and remaining in that relationship. There's probably going to be some outcomes that happen. Number one, you're going to heal and you're going to realize that this relationship isn't good for you. You're going to decide that you're worth more than this, and you're going to wind up leaving. That happens a lot of times, that a person begins to see their worth, their value, they begin to heal. The other person isn't doing any work, they're not growing, and the person decides that they have to leave in order for themselves to be whole, and they choose themselves instead of the relationship. So that's one outcome. A second outcome is that you're going to change, you're going to heal, you're going to transform, and as a result of that, you're going to change the way that you respond to that person. You're not going to be as triggered as you were before. Your communication style is going to be different. You're not going to engage in fights the same way that you did before, because as you're healing and progressing, you're making certain decisions about who you want to be. And that includes who you want to be in that relationship. So your whole demeanor, your energy is going to change. And that person might decide that they can't be with a person like you, the person that you've become. They're so used to being in something that's unhealthy that they can't figure out how to stay in a relationship with somebody who's getting healthy, because they're no longer getting their kicks, right, off of triggering you, getting upset with you, fighting with you. None of that's happening, and so they're not being satisfied. So that unhealthy part of them that they're used to getting those needs met in very unhealthy ways no longer getting those needs met, and so therefore they will decide to move on. This happens a lot of times in a relationship where one person will get sober and the other person doesn't get sober. And the unsober person realizes that they don't want to be in a relationship with somebody who's growing, transforming, and changing because it calls them out. It begins to reveal the fact that they're not changing. So very real possibility that that might happen. Now, a third option that might happen is that you change, they don't change, and you feel like the relationship is in an okay space. It's okay enough that you're able to stay in it. See this a lot, where one person just decides that they're going to grow, they're going to change, and the other person isn't. But you've changed to such a degree and you've gotten healthy enough where you've gotten clear boundaries, which we'll talk about here in a little bit, that it's okay to stay in the relationship. And you're able to see past some of the issues. You're able to love that person in spite of what's going on. And you're healed enough and secure enough with yourself that even though they're doing things, it's not pulling you down enough to where you feel like you have to make the choice to leave. You're still able to grow. You still love the person. You still want to be in the relationship. And you're at a point where you're not getting pulled into their negative behavior. And you feel like that you're growing and you're okay, so you're able to stay in the relationship. Now, let me address two more scenarios or two more possible outcomes. And by the way, this is not a comprehensive list. It's just kind of a common list of things that happen. The fourth thing that might happen is that you change and they see the change in you and it motivates them to change. And then they start doing their work. They're so moved by what's happening with you and your responses to them are so different than they were before. They begin to wonder, like, what are you doing? What's the work that you're engaging in? And they begin to be attracted to that new energy that you're putting out. They're attracted to the new version of you and they realize that they want to wake up. They want to heal. They want to change. And you get to do the work together. You get to do transformational work together. That's a beautiful scenario. Doesn't always happen, but it's a beautiful scenario when it does happen. Now, the final scenario that we'll talk about is that you change, you grow, you progress. They don't, as in the other situation and scenarios. And then you start to get pulled backwards. You start to get thrown off of your healing journey and your path. And then you settle back into old behaviors. You get right back into how the relationship was before, and you stop healing. So in that situation, it's really time to get honest with yourself, honest about the person, honest about the relationship, and honest about what you want for yourself. Remember, you are worthy of love, you are worthy of healthy relationship, and you're worthy of being able to choose yourself. I know at times we can feel really guilty when we choose ourselves, but us showing up as a very unhealthy version of ourselves, staying as an unhealthy version of ourselves, continuing to get pulled backwards, is not serving that relationship. Once again, it's not serving them, it's not serving you. It's time to get honest about what you need, what you want, and the decisions that you need to make. So now let me go ahead and talk about some things or some tools that can help you if you decide to stay in a relationship that you feel like is unhealthy and you're moving forward and you're growing. Here's some things that I think can really help you and help you continue to grow. One is a really solid support network, friends, mental health professionals, support groups. You're going to need voices and people who can help you and could be a sounding board and a reality check for you. Because sometimes we get sucked back into unhealthy behaviors and we're not able to see that they're unhealthy. So having healthy people who can be a sounding board for us and can give us input, really important. Don't give up that support network. Now, it might happen that the person you're with gets really frustrated, intimidated by you having those type of relationships in that support network, and they might try to sabotage it and pull you out of it. I would encourage you, do not give up those relationships, those lifelines, because the mere fact that somebody's trying to isolate you and pull you away from your support network is a huge red flag and is only going to lead to a more damaging and unhealthy situation for you. The second thing that's going to be really helpful is boundaries. Set boundaries and communicate those boundaries. Now, boundaries, they really upset people sometimes when they're used to you not having boundaries. So be prepared. I would encourage you, write out what those boundaries are, share those with your support group, with your network, and then be accountable to them about how well you're following through on those boundaries. But give those boundaries, share those boundaries to the person you're in a relationship with. Try to do it in a very loving manner if possible, but go ahead and let them know what those boundaries are. Yes, once again, those boundaries are going to scare them. It's going to cause them to react, but stick to them. Don't violate yourself by violating your boundaries, because you're only going to be as healthy as the boundaries that you have in your relationships. Now, the third thing I want to encourage you to do is have a list of non-negotiables. That if this happens, I'm out. If that happens, I'm out. And share that list with your support group, your accountability group, and let them know how things are going. Because we can often get sucked back into things, and then boundaries start to get crossed, and then things start to happen that we're really uncomfortable with, but we begin to make excuses again, and we begin to think that we're worthy of those things. Listen, you are worthy of respect, of love. So have your list. And if that list gets violated, you're going to have to find the strength to get out. Now, that list should include things like physical abuse, verbal abuse, mental abuse, gaslighting, control, trying to isolate you from other people, all of those things. If those things are happening, then that's that moment where you say, I've got to get out. Go to your support group, go to those who are helping you, and allow them to help you make that transition and to get out of the relationship. Now, once again, what we're talking about here is you healing while you're with somebody who's unhealthy. Now, that's different than saying, I'm going to remain in a relationship that's unhealthy, because you can have a person who's unhealthy and you can have a person who's healthy in a relationship, and it's not a hyper unhealthy relationship in and of itself. One person isn't doing their work, the other person is. But the question, once again, that we're trying to answer is, can I heal? Can I grow while I'm in a relationship with somebody else who's unhealthy? Yes, you can. But keep all of the things that I've shared in mind as you're in that relationship. I hope that makes sense, the differentiation I'm making there, because people will often talk about how they want to stay in the relationship and the person themselves isn't healthy, but you're able to not be drugged down or sucked down into that toxicity. And if that's the case and you're still able to heal, then yes, of course you can be in that relationship. But if the relationship becomes one where it's destructive to you, to your mental, physical, emotional health, then yes, it's time to get out of the relationship. And that's okay. There's no judgment on you. You didn't fail. You're not unworthy. You're not a loser. It's okay. It's okay if the relationship doesn't work out, because listen, number one, your mental and emotional and physical health. And if you're not able to bring that to the table in a relationship, the relationship's not working anyway. And sometimes we'll just drag out relationships because we feel like, you know what, a relationship failure means I'm a failure, or there's religious pieces and complications of religion around it. But listen, you don't have to stay in an unhealthy relationship just because that's what you're supposed to do. Everybody expects you to do that. And I know it may seem like the end of the world for a relationship to end, but it's not. And I know that it may feel like a death sentence, especially if it's divorce and you've got, as I've shared, like the religious complications that go around that. But it's not. It's not the end. Relationships are extremely important. Yes, our commitment in relationships is extremely important. However, you are extremely important. Your mental well-being is extremely important. I hope that was helpful. I hope that gave you some viewpoints on probably some of the outcomes that will happen and ways to guard yourself and protect yourself and to make sure that you're healthy, even if another person in the relationship isn't doing their work. Now, I know this can be a really difficult journey and you might need some support. You may not have support around you. I do want to let you know that if you need coaching services or support, you can find more information on my website at jerryhenderson.org/coaching, and work with people in those type of situations and difficult relationships and how you can continue to grow even in the middle of all of that. Well, thank you again for joining another episode of the Permission to Love podcast. Feel free to reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram at Jerry A. Henderson. You can also shoot me an email at jerry@jerryhenderson.org, or you can just kick over to my website at jerryhenderson.org. I'm so grateful that you're here, and remember, you are worthy of your own love.